So very quickly, a quick introduction of myself. My name is Anand Chakravarti. I'm a co-founder at Results and Outcomes, which is a very, very new education online upskilling platform. And just built our first course in partnership with MICA called the Advanced Digital Transformation Program. But the really focus of today evening's conversation is really on the context of not just digital transformation, but more importantly, how it is affecting the lives of working professionals like all of us. And for anybody who's working in any kind of domain within any kind of industry, the impact of transformation, which is spurred on by digital tools and technologies, is very, very evident. And every year, it's only going to accelerate. And just to illustrate that point, I just picked up three headlines over the last 7 days. And each headline actually kind of talks about really what's happening in India today, right? It's not about what's happening across the world, but what's happening in our country. Whether it's online services growing at a phenomenal pace, where there's online entertainment continuing to grow, whether it's organizations investing significantly in technology infrastructure in this country. So Google, for example, launched their second cloud region in NCR after having set up one cloud region in Mumbai a year or two ago. That's an indication of the increase in demand for cloud computing services. And that tells you that Indian businesses are on the move, and more boardrooms, the conversation is around how do they ensure that a more traditional brick and mortar organization is able to transform themselves and keep pace with the slew of new organizations coming to build their products and services completely online. Right. And that's leading to obviously a significant gap in capabilities, right? And this is not us talking, but a very interesting McKinsey report from last year spoke about that out of the 45 million white collar workers in India, at least 50% will need to be upskilled over the next 8 years. And the truth is that as the pace of digitization or digitalization of products keeps happening, the fact is that this skill gap will only become more acute, and the kinds of skills that organizations require to make the transition is really going to become more and more complicated and more, let's say, challenging if interventions are not made currently. Right? And I can't think of anybody better than to give us a perspective into this domain than Neeraj. So Neeraj himself is a technologist. He's the CTO and has been the CTO at many organizations. He's also worked hands-on in driving digital transformation in different sectors, in the telco sector, in the edutainment sector, and others, and not just in India, but across the world. And when I was chatting to him about, doing this session, I think so some of the things that he spoke about really resonated with me. That it's not about organization commitment to transform, but it's really about what that organization needs to do in terms of reducing that skill gap, which often is the barrier between successful digital transformation and an unsuccessful one. And I think no better than person than Neeraj with his really hands-on expertise working with organizations and teams to make that change happen, to give us a perspective on what are the kind of skill sets coming up in the future as a result of digital transformation, and therefore, as working professionals, what should we be focusing on to ensure that we not only stay relevant, but are able to accelerate our careers in the right direction. Interestingly, he's also written a very interesting book on digital transformation with a very, very sticky title, which goes by How to Kill Your Boss and Get Away with It. But without further ado, I'm going to pass on the baton to Neeraj. You can share your screen, and I'm sure everybody's waiting to hear from you.
Hello, everyone. Let me just quickly share my screen. You'll have to enable screen sharing for me, Anand.
Can you try now, please?
Yeah, just getting it. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So as Anand explained, I have been in this industry for about 22 years now, and I've worked on a lot of digital transformation initiatives or transformation initiatives across different domains, telco, e-com, edutainment sector as well. And all of that I've captured all of that knowledge and expertise in my book. And based on my experience over the years, there are some things that I have learned. There are some things that I've learned the hard way. Why or how digital transformation can be done in a better way? What are the pitfalls that come along with it, and how you can prepare yourself to do a proper digital transformation in your organization or any new organization that you may want to join at some point of time. I had to learn the hard way because obviously there was no courses at that time to which will explain what digital transformation is, what are the possible ways in which we can do it successfully, etc. So I've learned it through a lot of experience. I've burnt my fingers in a lot of these things. I thought I'll just bring that perspective in this session, and how you can one prepare yourself to do well or get better at doing digital transformation, and second also what are the kind of new roles or possible enhancements to existing roles that are happening because of digital transformation coming into picture. So let's start with the first one. So the first thing that we want to understand is, why do we want to understand what digital transformation is about? The reason is that these are the research numbers, not given by me. These are research numbers from McKinsey and Gartner and everybody, where they're saying that the business of digital transformation would be a true trillion-dollar business by 22 and 23. And these numbers were before COVID hit. So after COVID, I said, we have already reached a lot of these numbers or almost there. And because of the transformations that have already happened by force because of COVID, and the new ones which will also happen more or less because of force, this number is only going to increase. The 10% budget that most of the companies were expected to give has already shot past 10%, and it has gone to 25-30% in some some of the organizations because of the way things have happened. But it is also important to know that 70 to 75% of digital transformations that are taken up actually end up failing. And there are a lot of reasons why they fail. One of the reasons, of course, being the skill gap, but there are a lot of other reasons also. We'll get to some of the details of that as well. But what is important to understand is that you need to understand what digital transformation is, and only then you will know how to do it, what not to do, how to save it from failing, all of those things. So you need to understand first what digital transformation is about. Now, what is your understanding of digital transformation? I'll give you a few seconds just to think about what your understanding is. You must have some idea of what it is. You would have thought of that digital transformation means X, Y, Z. So bring that definition in your mind. And now let's take a look at what digital transformation is actually about. So digital transformation is about not just one organization or one module or one part of the organization. It is about the entire society at large, and changing the way society works using technology. That's what digital transformation is about. Now, if we restrict that definition specifically to an organization, it is changing the way the organization functions and doing it with the help of technology. It is changing the way the customer experience is for that organization. It's changing the way in which the business is performing. It is about revamping the organization structure. It is about changing the business processes. It is about changing the way people work in the organization, because customer experience eventually is not just about technology. It is about the people behind the technology or people in the organization. So all of these things need to change in order, and using technology as an enabler to bring about digital transformation in any organization or any place. This is the understanding that you have to go with whenever you are talking about, or whenever you are having any discussion with your colleagues, seniors, or you are figuring out what to do, how to transform your organization digitally. You need to keep in mind all of these aspects, that it is not about technology. It is about everything else other than technology. Technology just becomes an enabler for it. So what is it not? It is not about digitization. So what is, and so there are two terms that I've mentioned here, digitization and digitalization. So digitization is effectively just whatever hard copy. Let's say if your organization is doing a lot of paperwork on actual paper. There are forms to be signed, there are things to be done, and converting those non-digital assets into digital assets by, let's say, scanning those documents or scanning and reading those documents using OCR technologies or whatever, or entering the data from those documents into your systems. That is what digitization is about. But that is not digital transformation. Digitalization is one step further, where you have some items already digitized. You have done some kind of automation for some of the processes, but that is also not digital transformation. That is just doing some automation at IT level, which has already happened in many of the companies. There is some automation there. There are things that are happening still manually, which is or on paper. So that is not digital transformation. Using the latest technology in your organization is also not digital transformation. There is a tendency to in some cases where some people start talking about the latest in the technology which is out there. For example, blockchain, one of the technologies I'm just picking randomly. Blockchain is a technology that has been there has been a lot of hype about blockchain over the last few years, but eventually there are few use cases where it is really useful, but there are many use cases where it is an overkill if you want to use blockchain as a technology. Many years ago, AR and VR, that is augmented reality, virtual reality, were they were the in thing, and everybody wanted to go with it. But now, if you see, there are some use cases where it is still being used, but it has not picked up the way it was expected to pick up. So it is not about latest technology to be used in the organization. That is not transformation. And it is also not digital marketing. There is also a tendency to look at digital marketing as digital transformation. So if you do your marketing in a better way, using some kind of tools or using some analysis, etc., some people consider that as digital transformation, whereas that is not. Though that can be a part of it, but it is not what digital transformation is about. It is about changing the entire organization holistically, from processes, culture of the organization, customer experience, everything, and using digital technologies in order to do that transformation. Now, we have seen why we want to understand or why we want to learn what transformation is. We have seen what digital transformation is at a high level, of course. Now we have to look at how to do digital transformation. Again, we won't be getting into a lot of details, but when you look at doing transformation in any organization, there are various frameworks which are available in the industry, in the market, which you can use. Some of them are the MIT Sloan has come up with their framework to do it. Cognizant has their own framework. Altimeter, Ionology have their own frameworks that they propose that should be used. Similarly, all of these big consulting firms, whether it is KPMG or if you go to Gartner, also they will come up with some framework, or IBM, for example. Everybody has their own way of doing things. Everybody has their own framework of doing digital transformation. However, all of these, like some of these are available to you for free, but most of these are frameworks, transformation frameworks, are proprietary material for those organizations, for those consulting organizations. That is how they earn their money. So you may not be able to get that information from all of them, but if you're working in one of these organizations, obviously you will be able to use that information. But if you are working in a different organization and you want to do transformation in your organization, it's good to understand some of these frameworks possibly. And at the same time, there is another framework that is available, this is my framework. So what I have done is based on all the understanding of various other frameworks and based on my experience from my of doing transformation across some of these big companies, I've come up with a framework which is a amalgamation of the best from various frameworks and putting in my expertise or my experience on and fine-tuning that some of those things. So at a high level, it's called the football framework, but at a high level, if you look at the 6 pieces of this framework, most of it, so the foundation, which is about understanding the technical as well as business architecture of the organization, the understanding of the strengths and limitation of the organization, from every perspective, not just from technology, but from the leadership perspective, but from the process perspective, in terms of the culture perspective, understanding of all of that, looking at the trust level and building on the trust level across the organization amongst the various teams which are there. And then you get into the defining of the solution in various ways. So in some cases, you might want to buy certain tools and technologies. In some cases, you might have to build certain tools and technologies yourself, I mean. And then implement it using another way, which is all speed IT, which is a Gartner terminology, where so they came up with dual speed IT and then all speed IT, where you are doing certain things as a 6 months, 9 months, 1 year projects, and you're doing certain things as 1 month projects or sprint projects, like 15 days projects and stuff. So you are developing things at multiple speeds. And of course, the key aspects of a good, one of the key aspects of a good transformation is to have a very strong digital transformation leadership. So if you look at these 6, there are only 2 which actually talk about actual solution and implementation of the solution at a technical level. Everything else talks about everything else other than technology. So this is the key thing that you should take. If there is one thing that you take away from today's session, is this: that technology is just one part of the entire transformation framework or entire transformation idea. Some of the steps associated with with transformation, how do you do transformation at a very high level, is you have to first do the maturity assessment within the organization. You have to understand what the organization can and cannot do, whether the organization is ready to undertake a transformation journey. Then you set up the targets, you define the KPIs associated with each of those targets at a detailed level. You consolidate various requirements, you plan the due diligence and perform due diligence of various things that you need to do as a part of transformation at the organization level. You have to define a high level solution and then the implementation plan associated with that high level solution. Who is going to do what are the teams associated with it, etc. You have to define the feedback mechanism where before you even start transformation, so that you are able to fine tune and quickly change your direction if there are, based on feedback that you get from various quarters within the organization and even outside the organization for that matter. Then you have to define the program management structure as well as the technical governance model. So you have to set up those governance models. Once you perform these 11 essential steps, after that you actually start the implementation of your plan, of your transformation plan. Now, I haven't got into details of all of these. There are a lot of things that you need to know when you have to, if you have to perform even one of these steps. But it is not, transformation is not a straightforward, it is not a simple program to undertake. And it is certainly not a pure technical program to undertake, which is one of the key issues that happens whenever any organization takes up transformation. They feel that it is a technical project, but it is not. There are so many things that you can see on the screen that you need to perform before you even start your transformation, the actual implementation of your transformation program. Now, how has that changed the kind of roles that are available, that are required in order to do this transformation? Now, this is the crux of today's discussion, that once you have understood what transformation is, how complicated it can be, what are the various things you need to do, we will now talk about the kind of roles that have got enhanced as a part of transformation, as a part of this, and what are the new roles that are coming in as a part of transformation. Now, let's talk about quickly about each of them. For example, the first one, the digital requirements capturer. Now, requirements gathering is an essential part of any transformation program, or any program, any IT or technology program for that matter. When you capture these, when you capture the requirements, earlier the requirements capturing was happening in a different way, or the kind of requirements that were getting captured were different. Now, with transformation or with digital technologies coming in, you have to capture the requirements from that perspective, thinking of the future, thinking of how you can bring about a change in which the customer is going to experience your organization. For example, when these disruptors came in, the much often taken example is Uber. Earlier, everybody either had to go and stop a taxi on the road, or they had to call up a taxi, a radio taxi. They will come up to your place and then they will do, then you go and use the taxi service. When Uber came in, they not only provided a different kind of user experience where you could just use an app and you could see where are all the taxis available, how much time it is going to take for the taxi to reach your place, all of those things, and you could book a taxi, cancel a taxi, and everything, etc. But it also changed the way the backend of this work. So it was an entirely new business model that they built um, for traveling from one place to the other. So in your case also, depending on the industry that you're in, there might be a completely different way in which, or completely different business model that you might be looking at to transform your organization. And when you're looking at that kind of a business model, the requirements that you're capturing are also going to be different. You'll have to capture requirements based on the new business model. You'll have to look at the various digital interactions that can happen with the customer or with the on the supply side also, or from the employee's perspective. And you'll have to keep all of that in mind while you define the requirements. So that is an enhanced role that has happened. Software engineers, of course, it is when they have to develop something, they have to understand it, they have to learn it. So there are so many new technologies that are coming in all the time. They'll have to keep themselves abreast with the latest technologies. Even if it is not about using it straight away, there would be different criteria about which technology to use, which technology to not use. But at least, that is what has changed from software engineers' perspective. Cloud computing specialist is obviously, you have already seen how cloud is now being used everywhere in every organization, irrespective of which domain you are in. So that is not something that has enhanced, or that is a new type of role that has already come in, irrespective of using irrespective of digital transformation. Digital product managers. So now product managers are the owners of the entire product that are getting built in any organization. And when you are transforming your organizations, your product managers need to be aware that about the same things, the requirements that are getting captured, the way things are getting built, the way things are getting highlighted to the management, for example. The data based on which you are defining the direction of your product, all of that need to be very the product managers need to understand what kind of data need to be used, or what kind of analytics need to be used before they decide on the direction in which the product is supposed to or expected to go. So that is another role that has enhanced. DevOps manager DevOps is for some of you probably already know, but if you don't know what DevOps is development and operations coming together as a single team. That is the next, not next. Some companies are already using it as a development framework or development methodology, where developers and operations team work together to develop the product and also fine tune based on the feedback from the operations team. Data engineers have been in demand for a long time. Their role has only gotten even better or bigger when it comes to transformation. The reason being that the kind of data that is getting generated today across various domains, and let's say from customer data, customer behavior data, then you have the systems data that is getting captured. If you're talking about automotive industry, all of those automated robotic steps which are there, some steps are manual, some steps are already automated. So all of that information or data that is getting captured, that can get analyzed, that you could be analyzed in order to fine tune or improve the performance of the process. There are the social media data that is getting captured today through various channels. So all that data can also be analyzed to figure out the direction in which the organization can go. So the role of data engineers has only become more and more important over the years, and it is likely to get even better or even more important as we go along. Data strategists and data scientists. Now, again, these are specific data related roles. Data strategists basically define or decide what kind of data can be utilized or should be utilized in order to perform certain analysis to come up with business decisions. And data scientists are the ones who are actually doing the machine learning. They are helping build the machine learning algorithms, or they are trying to use NLP to do certain analytics on the data, etc. So there are a lot of things that a data scientist does, but data scientist role is very specialized data. It's a very specialized role, which is less of data, more of maths. Whereas data engineers and data strategists are more business, and data engineers are more about building the entire data ecosystem. So these roles are again also becoming key roles. Customer experience and user experience engineers. Now, customer experience, user experience engineers have been there earlier as well, but with all of these various technologies coming in and various ways in which these technologies can be used, and given the fact that you are the users which are there, the actual end users, customers, are from varied backgrounds. Some of them may be technology savvy, some of them may be not technology savvy, some would be using a smartphone, and in cases in India, there would still be a lot of people who are using India, or even in Africa for that matter. There are a lot of people who are still using either the basic phone, basic mobile, or they are using feature phones. So given that there need to be special user experience designers or engineers who would understand these different users and define or design the journey or interface with the users from that perspective. So this is another critical role that is coming up. Digital trainers, of course. Now, once you get into building all of this new stuff, you'll have to help train the end users or your employees for that matter in all of those technologies. Then you have marketing. From marketing perspective, as I was talking about, digital marketing or growth marketing has become one of the key aspects now to grow your business. And there are various companies or tools already available that help you with ML-based algorithms to fine-tune your marketing spends, or you can use the data that is getting captured in your organization, whether it's e-commerce or any other organization, to understand what are the how to market your organization better. You have conversational marketing strategies, which is another form of marketing that is coming up slowly, where you are marketing, but it is more like a conversation that you're having with your with prospects. So that can be designed. Chatbot designers is another role that has come up recently, that is already getting used in many of the cases, but as and when more organizations transform themselves, chatbots and robotic helpers are becoming key in some cases. In some cases, still people prefer manual interactions or basically on the phone or whatever. But in some cases, you would not even realize that there's a chatbot or an automated robot talking from behind the phone or from your chat window. So that is also another very efficient way of interaction with the users, especially from support perspective. Digital forensic analysis is a new area that is coming up, with so much digitalization happening across the organization, across all industries, and there are a lot of issues that are also happening. There are a lot of frauds that are also happening. So figuring out what exactly went wrong at any, in some of the cases, if there was some money stolen from a bank, for example. A recent example, just yesterday, some hackers stole a lot of money, I think $600 million from an organization. And then once the money was stolen, the organization then appealed to the hacker saying, please give us our money back, because 600 million is a lot of amount. And the hacker also returned part of the money, some 250 or 300 million were returned. But the hacker said that my aim is not to was not to steal the money, but it was to figure out what are the lacunas, what are the issues that you have with your security in for your organization. And when such kind of things happen, now in this case, the hacker was probably partly decent, at least that he has returned half of the money. Maybe he will return the entire amount also. But in the organization, within the organization, there need to be these analysts who would be able to understand exactly what happened, what were the loopholes which were used by the hacker to in order to steal all of those money, what were the process loopholes, what were the technical loopholes, and they'll need to go through the entire history of that through the logs and everything, so that they are also able to prove in the if required on exactly this is what has happened and this is the person responsible for it. So that is another very important and useful area that is coming up. Digital and workplace technology managers is another thing, because with for example, now with COVID, everybody is working from home, so obviously the technology is being used, the software is being used, the security areas being used. In many cases probably it is still rudimentary or even not there, but in some cases they are already starting to enhance the security of how things go in terms of data or other security of working from home. So those, there would be specialists required for that. Data stewards and MDM specialists or MDM champions. Those are another two things which have been there earlier, but which has become more critical now. Because in the organization, when you are capturing so much amount of data, that's a huge amount of data, you need people to ensure that the data getting captured is one, it is getting cleaned up, as well as if it is not getting cleaned up, then they build a roadmap to clean up the data, and they ensure that the data which is getting captured is quality data, because the better the quality of the data, the better analytics you'll be able to perform, and then of course you'll be able to take business decisions based on it. So these are not all of the roles that that have come up or that have gotten enhanced as a result of digital transformation or digital technologies coming in, but these are some of the roles, and this will give you an idea of uh, how existing roles are also getting enhanced. And if you are doing a role other than all of these things, all of these roles also, you'll be able to appreciate based on the discussion that we just had of how your role is likely to change as a part of the because of the transformation that is happening. So what is your role? You need to understand that whatever is your current role, how is it going to get enhanced as a part of because of transformation or because of these disruptions coming in. And you need to be prepared to become a digital transformation agent, not just for your role, definitely for your role or your type of role, but also for the organization perspective. The more you understand about how each of these roles are changing because of transformation, you'll be able to not only understand your role better and your contribution to the organization better, but you'll also be able to help other people transform themselves to perform the enhanced or the modified role as we go along. That is the key aspect that you need to take with you from the role perspective. Let's take a look at very quickly on some of the success stories and of course the failures also. Banks, I don't even need to get into a lot of details of that. You have seen all of these banks. Everybody has. They were the early. They were the earliest ones to pick up digital transformation and use all of these latest technologies to transform the way banking happens. Everybody now uses digital their phone to do most of the transactions. With NPCI coming up with UPI payments, UPI has become very straightforward nowadays to use UPIs. Google has come up with Google Pay and everything. Credit cards are coming up with various ways in which you can simplify the payment. So banking or BFSI industry has already come up with a lot of these changes. So this is the transformation that has already happened over the years. Grocery chains, we have already seen how some of the disruptions came in because of Big Basket and other such companies. And now the brick and mortar organizations or brick and mortar shops are also using various digital technologies to transform the way they work. For example, recent one, Zomato has now come up with just like food delivery. They have also coming up with grocery deliveries through these specific local shops, and local shops are now connecting with Zomato to do that. There are other tools also where they are doing that, but that is the transformation that they are doing. Industry 4.0 has been basically automotive industry has been on the forefront when it comes to transformation or using the right technologies at the right place. It has already been done in a lot of countries, especially in Europe and in Japan and US. In India also, if many of these Indian companies, or even if they are foreign companies who are working in India, they're already using a lot of automations, in some cases even AR and VR as learning tools, etc., to implement or to in their production setup. There have been a few failures also. Just some of the examples that I have taken, because these are well-known examples, especially in the transformation arena. GE started with an IoT platform many years ago. They wanted to build an IoT platform, but they didn't really have a clear focus on what exactly they want to build. They tried their hands at doing within IoT itself. They tried their hands at one thing at first, then they moved to something else, then they moved to something else. There were different teams working on different areas. There was no cohesion, and the focus was lacking. So there, after a while, they gave up on that. So that was a big failure. On our company like GE doesn't have any issue with money, but they still failed because the focus was lacking. So this is one of the reasons why transformations fail. Ford Smart Mobility, again, they started a separate unit called Ford Smart Mobility, but they completely disconnected it from their entire Ford organization. So the culture that the organization had, and because they completely disconnected it from Ford, the rest of the Ford, they never really gelled well together. And because of that, then it failed, because they were not able to use the best of what they already had in this unit. So this gelling, this culture, or rather changing of the culture itself, and ensuring that the leadership teams, as well as the teams on the ground, are gelling well together, that is another important aspects of how a transformation becomes successful or fails. P&G also tried to bring about a transformation a long time ago. What they started off with a big bang approach. They wanted to change everything at the same time, and because of that, in some cases it may have worked, but P&G is a huge organization, and doing a big bang change without taking everybody into confidence, without ensuring that there is business continuity, etc., happening, it doesn't work. So that big bang change that they try to bring in, it didn't really work. So that is something that needs to be kept in mind when you are looking at transforming in and out. So as a part of the football framework, the 12 steps that I was talking about, there were due diligence, etc., that I talked about, planning and doing the due diligence, looking at the maturity of the organization to undertake such a big journey. All of those things were not taken into account, or at least they were not done properly before they started with this program, and that's why their program failed as well. So there are a lot of reasons why programs can fail, and if the reasons I have taken these 3 examples is because you can see these are huge organizations which still failed. So you need to understand that it is not how much money that you put in it. It is not the technology that you bring in. It is about a lot of other things that ensures whether, or that decides whether a transformation program succeeds or fails. Okay. There is one example that I'll quickly take of a telecom organization that I have helped in transforming from their initial stage of, let's say there were about 450 odd applications, 300 odd processes, and a lot of systems doing the same things. There were a lot of manual handoffs, issues happening, and that was transformed into a consolidated, the target that was set up was 120 applications, for reducing from 450 to 120 approximately. Processes were to be reduced. There were a lot of data cleanup to be that happened. Automation was brought into picture. There were ML technology, machine learning technologies being used, as well as predictive assurance was brought in using ML technology. So a lot of these things were done and successfully done, and the performance as well as the cost associated with doing a certain task, or capturing a customer, or delivering a service to the customer, all of that also was reduced as a result of this. And this is something that I've done myself. So there are a lot of learnings that I have from this as well. Now, now that we have looked at all of those things, let's pause for a minute and let's take up a few questions and see if there are any. I'll try to answer some of the questions that you might have on this. So maybe Anand, if you have, I don't know how you want to do the
I think
transmission.
I'll open it up for the audience first. So if
Sure.
you have a question, do unmute yourself and ask Neeraj. It could be related to any part of the presentation, but happy to hear from you in terms of any questions that you may have.
Yeah.
Anyone there? The question, or otherwise, I have a few questions from you. Okay, let me start with my question here. I mean,
Sure.
look, I think the challenge for a lot of working professionals, irrespective of the number of years of experience, is that irrespective of the domain you are in, you are seeing, that kind of disruption happening, changes happening, and therefore even expectations from organizations are changing from whether you are at a relatively early stage of your career or whether you are at a relatively advanced stage of your career. And the truth is that skill sets are something that need to be built, especially in the context of all these changes happening. Typically, when you are hiring for any project or helping an organization, what were you looking for in terms of capabilities?
Right. So there are. Am I mute? Okay, I'm not on mute. So there are a couple of things that I look for when I'm hiring for a program, especially from digital transformation perspective. One is, of course, the understanding of the domain itself. So everybody has some expertise in that they bring with themselves. So what is the understanding of their domain? That is one part. And the second part is so currently the issue is that nobody really understands, or there are very few formal courses which are available, which will help people understand what transformation is and what are the things to keep in mind, what are the lacunas that are there in the entire process and everything, and how to go about it. So there are when I'm looking for people, I'd never really get people who understand all of this by themselves. However, then I look at the attitude or aptitude of that person in terms of when they are coming up, when I have those interviews, what is their vision? Do they look at things in a broader perspective? Do they understand that what are the newer technologies that are coming in? Now, of course, understanding of the technology by itself is just one part, but whether people understand how exactly to use that technology, whether to use the technology in the first place for a particular situation or not, and how they can bring about a transformation, not just in their role, but in the organization. Do they have that kind of a mentality or thinking process? That's what I have to look for nowadays when I bring people in, because there is no formal way of understanding, or there is no formal way of where I can go and say that, okay, this person has done this particular course or done this certification. So I should think that, okay, now this person at least has got that level of understanding from transformation perspective. So that is my current challenge, and that is what I look for nowadays. So when I hire people.
That's clear. Any questions from the audience, or please feel free to ask. You just unmute yourself and ask Neeraj a question.
Neeraj, what is the digital transformation you did for telco? Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah, so multiple places actually. I did it for three telcos for that matter. So in one of the cases, it was a huge organization, with a global organization with, again, multiple systems doing the same things. There were a lot of manual processes, etc. So, and this was 10 years ago or so. So we brought in that entire change in the organization structure, everything from organization structure to platformizing the tech stack which was there. So platformizing, if I don't know how much everybody is aware of that. So basically, we built a platform over which we were able to not only perform the tasks or transformation within the the processes of the organization itself, we were also able to expose the same platform to third parties, where they were able to use our processes and our systems to do their work. Like, small time telcos, which are or something like an OTT provider that you get today. So there were OTT telcos which were using our platform to sell their services. So those are some of the things that I did for one of the telcos. In the other one that I just mentioned in the slide, it was the organization was huge, but the number of systems were like 450 odd. The earlier organization that I talked about had 4,000 applications and systems that we were able to reduce. Here it was more about, in this one was more about changing the culture of the organization. The way things were happening was more manual, more laid back attitude about how of providing a particular service to the customer. And we had to bring about a change, not just in the way the systems performed or the technology was being used, but also in the change in the culture of the organization itself. So that is not something that a technologist is necessarily will be able to do. There is a technology plus leadership plus HR professionals, everything comes into place in that case. So that was one of the changes that we did. So these were some of the things that we did. There were a lot of other things, of course, but it will take a lot more time to get into details of all of that.
Karthik, did you have a question?
Yeah. So one question I was having was normally from the perspective of digital transformation, where does it appear as digital transformation in the organization?
You'll have to repeat that, sorry, Karthik.
Or
Hear the question. You'll have to
Sorry,
repeat
Karthik,
CTO level.
Sorry, Karthik, you were losing your voice. Could you just repeat the question because your voice was breaking?
Yeah. Yeah. So can you hear me now?
Yes,
we can. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was just trying to understand. So when any digital transformation initiative gets initiated in an organization, where does it start? Does it start at the CEO's level, or does it start at the CTO's level, or who does actually take up the mantle of driving digital transformation?
Understood. I understand the question. So your question, if there was some issue with the audio again, but I think your question is, where does the digital transformation start? Who starts it? Whether it is the CTO or the CEO, and or somebody else who drives it, for that matter.
Yeah.
So essentially, again, it is not. So CTO is better equipped to understand the technology aspects, obviously, and better equipped to understand what these or how these technologies can be used, because a CTO is not just technical person, he also understands the business. So a CTO may start it, but eventually, if a company has to successfully perform digital transformation, it is not the CTO alone who can drive it. The final ownership of or accountability of transformation has to be. Sorry, Karthik, if you could go on mute, please.
Yeah, sure.
There is a lot of thanks. So the accountability or the ownership of transformation has to always be with the CEO, because unless the CEO is driving, so there is a second level below the CEO of all the CTO, the marketing head, the let's say the delivery head, delivery as in the service delivery head, then the CTO obviously owns the IT and technology parts of it. There are the HR head, sales head, all of these guys are reporting eventually to the CEO. And the transformation, because it is across the organization always, even if you are making changes at the technology level only, and you are not changing the business processes that much, still all of these areas are going to get impacted, and all of these C-level executives need to be involved in it or invested in it equally. And that can happen only when the CEO is driving the organization. So the idea may come from the CTO. The idea may come from anybody, for that matter. The CMO may, the chief marketing officer may come up with certain idea of how they want to transform the marketing domain. But when it comes to the CTO will then be able to highlight that it is not just the CMO part. These are the other things also that we should look at transforming. And the CEO then not only has to take a decision, but also drive that entire transformation. The CTO may be the person responsible to drive it, because there are a lot of digital technologies and everything will have to be used and stuff, but the accountability or final ownership has to be with the CEO.
Yeah.
Yes. There's a question from Nisha who asks on chat that you stressed about bringing about a cultural shift, which is interesting, right? Because you're a technical person, but you had to get involved in a project where cultural shift had to happen. So could you just elaborate about a couple of things that you had to do, maybe along in partnership with the HR department of that organization, in order to bring about that culture? What kind of things were required to bring about change? Because it's always difficult to change culture.
Yes, it is. So there are various. So it depends on depends on every organization what are the things you need to do. But some of the things that we certainly did. And am I speaking on mute again? Sorry, let me just.
No,
I'm not. Okay, yeah. So some of the things that we did. So one of the issues that I'll tell you the issues and what we did. So one of the issues that we had was the teams were not really working well with each other. So the whole way in which things worked was that it was like more of passing the parcel. So one team would take the parcel from another team, do certain things, pass it along, and there was no common accountability across, or there was no so it was not a team effort. It was more about, this is my role, this is the only thing that I'll do, and this is what I need, this is what I will give. I don't want to think about anything else. That was the kind of mentality that was there. So we had to do a lot of trainings which were more nothing to do with work, nothing to do with the actual systems or tools. The trainings were more about bringing all of these teams at the leadership level, ensuring that they are working well together as a team. They understand that even if today I am the one who is facing an issue, tomorrow one of the other guys is going to face the issue, but eventually the organization is going to suffer. So how to help ensure that we are working well with each other. First it started with leadership, then it went down to the next level, then to the next level, and so we were able to make the teams work better together. Even if the processes remain the same, the working between the teams work better together. Second, when there were changes that we wanted to bring about in terms of the business processes, every team then came up with, no, I definitely need this information. I can't work without this information, or I can't work without these steps. So those kind of things were, again, it was more about, if I don't do this, then my let's say the number of tickets that I resolve, for example, their KPIs were the number of tickets that are getting resolved. And of course, so then they were always worried about only that. If I have to finish a ticket in 10 minutes, I need all of this information. Otherwise, it'll take 15 minutes to finish the ticket, for example, right? So then what we did was we changed the KPIs itself for that particular team. Then the number of tickets or the amount of time that was taken to resolve a ticket became one of the factors. The other factors which were part of their KPIs were, how are they collaborating well with the other users overall as a team, not just their team, but all the other teams associated with resolution of that ticket. How well are they performing, and how they are able to reduce the overall time of resolution, rather than one team finishing their task and sending it across to the next one. So that way, then they were not responsible only for their teams, but they were also responsible for other teams working. So then they, the kind of interaction or discussions that happened amongst themselves during resolution of a ticket, they would get on a call quickly and ensure that the other person is also able to resolve his part or his or her part. And if I am able to help them finish that part quickly, then I would do that, because eventually my KPI is getting hit. So that was one more thing. The third thing is, obviously there is always resistance to change when you want to bring about any kind of new tool which is probably better in terms of, or more standardized and stuff. There is always resistance to change. In some cases, we were able to sort of educate the end users about why we are doing this, and help them do that change and adapt to those changes. In some cases, the issue was that they were still not ready to adapt. In that cases, then we had to force them. You have to just say that, okay, this is it. You have to use it. You don't have an option. So it depends on the situation, it depends on the people, it depends on the organization. But these are some of the things that we were able to do, or that we did to bring about those changes. These non-technical workshops which are there, they really help in bringing about that collaboration amongst teams. And once you bring about the collaborations, a lot of things become easier. So that is something that you should keep in mind whenever you are looking at these, bringing about those cultural changes.
I think that's interesting that you say that, because I think if you look at the World Economic Forum, the kind of skill sets that are relevant for 2025 and above, or 2025 and beyond. In fact, so there are four sets of skills. Two are more technical, hard skills. But the second two buckets of skills that they've identified are actually all cognitive, leadership style, collaborative style skills, right? So the truth is that, I guess, transformation and in both culture and process, and let's say technology, process, etc., have to go hand in hand. Otherwise, it will never be successful. So that's really, really, really interesting. Thanks for
Yeah.
that, Neeraj. Anybody else on the call? I'm conscious
Yeah.
of the time.
So I have
Yes, go ahead, please.
So I had one question again. So this is primarily to do with structure. Okay, now in the nature of the fact that since you mentioned about process, there was also this aspect around structure. Okay, because if you look at a lot of organizations, they were built for a different era. Okay, for a different kind of a customer that they were trying to serve. Okay, now in the nature of the kind of organizations and the kind of way that we are dealing in a platform world. Okay, there are a world which is clearly dominated by platforms, and a lot of our transactions, a lot of our businesses get executed through platforms. Okay, so given that aspect, there is obviously an aspect of structure that comes in, because the traditional businesses or the traditional way of doing business is no more relevant, and that obviously needs you to embrace a new way of doing business. Okay, so that obviously brings in couple of complexities. One is obviously your own go to market will obviously need to change, and that basically brings into an aspect of a lot of people becoming redundant, okay, or irrelevant, because their skill sets are not in keeping with the needs and requirements that are now there now. So obviously to basically bring about a big transformation obviously means having to bite that bullet and having to take that tough stance, okay, of basically trying to be able to go ahead and communicate to people, saying that obviously we value your contribution, but probably now you're no more as relevant as you used to be at one point of time. And many organizations have not really done that work of actually training or upskilling their people, okay, really to be able to embrace that kind of disruption or that transformation that is now wrought on them. So keeping in mind that aspect of the structure, okay, how do you now navigate this challenge? Because now fundamentally, because this will need a lot of people to be told that some of them will probably have to go, some of them will probably have to reskill, okay, and many of them would be at different stages in their own life. Some of them probably have spent a lot of time and probably are not in that position able to reskill, okay, and some of them who would probably be very early on, okay, who probably will be suddenly be tasked with actually having to do much more than what they initially were actually expected to do as such. So given this kind of gender diversity, this kind of cultural diversity, and also the aspect of now having to manage this kind of a disruption, okay, that you are now having to face internally, how did you in your experience manage this particular piece? So just wanted to get some thoughts around that.
Right. So in two of the organizations, so out of the three telcos, I would say out of the three telcos, two telcos in which I worked and which we performed digital transformation had this kind of an issue. Sorry, once again, Karthik, if you could go on mute,
Sorry.
please.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So in two of the organizations, we we knew that this is an issue that we are going to face, and what we did was, in one of the places, what we did is, when we were defining this entire solution from technology perspective as well as from the business model perspective, etc., we had an idea of which roles are likely to get redundant or reduced in scope, and which roles are likely to get enhanced in scope, or new roles that are coming in. So one thing that we did with those specific roles is that we figured out our way before even going to the the employees, or these roles that I was talking about, people performing these roles. We figured out if these are the roles which are going to get redundant or reduced in scope, what are the, using similar skill set for those same people who understand this kind of a role, what are the better ones, what are the different ones that they can do, different roles that they can perform. For example, in one company, what we did was, because their role was getting redundant and because there were other companies who were still in that situation, we provided our resources as consultants to those organizations. Okay, so and this works very well even when you are looking at let's say non-Indian organizations, or let's say European or US organizations outsourcing their work to India. Now, one of the reasons, of course, why they outsource the work is because it is cheaper. Now, if you're looking at outsourcing it to India or Philippines or somewhere else, or if you're looking at automating that process, where their manual steps were being performed, either ways, their role is going to get more or less redundant. So out of, let's say, 100 people who were probably working in that process or working on that process step, 10 people would still be required to oversee that process, even if it is automated. You need people to oversee. You need checking of certain things. There will always be exceptions happening, so you'll have to deal with those exceptions, etc. But the rest of the 90 people, either they can be reskilled to work or upskilled to work on something similar, but maybe at something but different within the new organization that we are trying to build. Or what we did was we just outsourced them at a much higher rate to other organizations who needed help. So if a person was, we were spending, let's say, $10,000 a month on a particular person, for doing a particular task. When we automated it, that task got automated, and so the person was no longer required to do that task. We were able to then provide that same person that $50,000 a month to somebody else. So we were eventually ended up earning money rather than letting them go and saving, let's say, $10,000. We instead ended up earning $40,000 a month from that particular person. So there is this thing that need to be done. Second, wherever there are these likely redundancies which are likely to happen, it is very important to figure out the next steps, these steps, like for example, this kind of a step, or maybe reskilling. What kind of reskilling can be done? What are the other new roles which are coming up? So, and letting the people know upfront that this is possible, this is also possibly likely to happen, and that you should. Then we were able to train them, give the let's say if they have to do some external training, we paid for those trainings for them to get upskilled on that on different other areas, and help them transition slowly using that. And the leadership of that particular team, they need to be first convinced that okay, this is what is going to happen. They need to identify who can do what kind of a training, what kind of skills, and those trainings need to be provided upfront, even before we get into the discussion of that your role is going to get redundant. Those things need to be put in their KPIs so that they reskill themselves or they get ready for the new role. And you then start slowly migrating people to these newer roles. There are still some roles which would remain out of those, let's say 90, we maybe utilized some in external organizations. We utilized some in our own organization by moving them. There might still be 10 people who are likely to be let go of, and then you just can't. I mean, it's a decision that you have to take, and it is a decision. For that you have to obviously help them. There are various aspects that you need to do, whether it is about giving them a good package, relieving package, giving them rather helping them find new roles or new jobs in some other organization, helping them with building their own CV, or helping them get the kind of trainings that they need, all of that. So all of these steps are a part of, again, as a part of transformation, all of those things also need to be taken into account, and all of those things need to be thought of before, while you're defining your transformation steps. So the implementation part, as I was saying, out of those 12 steps, the implementation is the 12th step. It's all of these things that the due diligence that you need to perform. What are the kind of changes that are likely to happen? What are the trainings that you need to bring in? All of these things have to be thought about at the I would say the preparatory stage of transformation itself. And they work. I mean, there are these things that I mentioned, these 2-3 things that you have to do, and they work. If people understand that these things are going to happen. There is nothing that they can do in order, they can't escape it. So, and as long as we are providing them a better way of dealing with it, people appreciate that. I mean, that's my experience so far. There are always some issues that are likely to happen with specific individuals, but then you will have to deal with them on case-to-case basis.
Thanks for that, Neeraj. I'm going to take there's one question, and I'm going to keep it the last question given the time. So,
Sure.
Shreya Kapuri asked this question, and I think what's important is that she would like to look at the response from the lens of somebody who's in their mid-career and not at a senior level. So, please keep that in mind, Neeraj. So, her question was that, you know, what in your opinion should be the first step, you know, when you're trying to identify
skill
skill
gap.
gaps, so that as a mid-career professional, you can prioritize the right kind of upskilling that's required for yourself.
Right. So since you're if you're talking of mid-career, you're obviously, let's say, if take an example of a software developer. A software developer has probably learned a few technologies, 5 to 10 years of experience now. He or she is good at a particular area of technology, and there are newer things coming up in that area or similar areas. So it becomes easier for that professional, for a software developer professional, software development related professional, to understand or learn a newer technology and get into that. That becomes relatively easy for those professionals. But when it comes to people who are not into software development, but there are other roles that are getting performed or that the person is performing. So Shipra, I think Shipra it was who asked the question. So Shipra, I don't know. Sorry, Shreya. So Shreya, I don't know what exactly the role that you are performing right now, but if it is not software development, if it is some other role, then you will have to understand what are the trends when it comes to not just your role. For example, we looked at enhanced role. So as a product manager, the enhanced role was a digital product manager, looking at how product manager has to take into account all of these various technologies or trends that are there now. What are the things that are likely to change in terms of the organization itself, whether it's in your domain or another domain. So keeping that in mind, what is it that you don't know? So obviously you will not know the entire thing. You know that let's say product management from a particular perspective. This is what you understand. This is what you have done so far. And these are the kind of outputs, or the organizations that you have worked with. These are the kind of outputs that came out because of the work that you did. But if you look at the next stage of your organization that you're working with, or the industry that you're working with, what are the, let's say, other organizations which are far beyond what your company is? So if you're working in let's say, I'll take an example of a smaller e-commerce organization, right? If you're working for a small e-commerce organization as a product manager, you would have built a product which already has this thing happening. It's an e-commerce organization, so obviously you have an e-commerce platform in place. You would have your order journey at least automated. Your delivery journey may not have been automated, for example, right? So, but there is an Amazon, which is already a leading e-commerce organization. So what is the difference between your organization and the leader in your industry? And if that is the difference, what are the different things that you can bring about in order to, in your organization, to reach that level? Now, your organization may not be able to do it because of financial reasons or whatever reasons, but you as a product manager will at least be able to see the difference between your and the leader in that organization, and figure out what your organization needs to do. And then if this is what your organization needs to, this is the gap that your organization needs to catch up, what is it that you need to learn in order to help the organization reach that Amazon level in this case? So this is the way in which you can go about figuring out the gap. That is one thing. Second, it is not just about your organization or your domain or your industry area. You should look at industries linked with your industry also. So if you are looking at automotive industry, then the industries which are associated with automotive industries, for example, chips. Nowadays, chip availability has become a critical issue for all of these automotive industries, whether it is Tata or any of these car manufacturers. It has become a major issue because of a pandemic, because of China, or people looking at a separate, they're moving from China to some other country for that, etc. So your industry is definitely, you have to look at the gap, but you should also look at where your related industries are going in terms of their leaders. You look at what their leaders are doing and how they are performing. Because what happens is, when you're looking at your industry, anything that look at your industry, all of these surrounding industries who are linked with you are always going to impact your work, your industry. Similarly, your role of a product manager, as an example, there are software developers, there are marketing people who are linked with you because you're a product manager. So you need to look at what is happening in their areas also at the at the highest level. What is the best in that area, and what let's say what company is doing the best in that area, and you understand what they are trying to do. So when you look at instead of just looking at your that tunnel vision of your domain and your industry only, you should look at surrounding things also. So these are the two things. One, look at the leader in your in your industry and in your domain, and look at the surrounding associated domains and associated industries also. That will help you understand what is it that you need to what are the gaps, and then obviously when you know the gaps, you can then figure out where to fill those gaps, Coursera or somewhere else.
Okay, I think, guys, given the time, I think there's a last question from Karthik, and he asks that what is the level of data maturity that an organization should be at before it decides to go through digital transformation?
Yeah. So actually, you don't need to be at any level of data maturity when you want to do transformation. The fact is that if you're actually at a very bad data maturity level, that itself becomes one of the factors of transformation. So in transformation, the transformation happens at multiple levels. It happens at the customer, it happens at the employee level, it happens at your technology level, it happens at business processes level, it happens at data level. There are various aspects. And one of the things that if you look at, since we didn't go into details of that, when you look at the digital maturity of an organization, it is not just about the cultural maturity of an organization to undertake transformation. It is also about where you are, current baseline. You might be at level 0 from data maturity perspective. You might be at level 3 from technology perspective. You might be at level 2 from customer experience perspective. Once you know that, and when you know that there are different levels and you have to reach, let's say, level 5, which is the maximum level, then you know that this is a huge gap that you need to overcome. And because there is a huge gap, your focus will then automatically go into that area. So if your digital maturity is 0 at this moment, as a part of the KPIs, as a part of the targets that you define for your organization for transformation, overcoming that digital maturity gap, data maturity gap from, let's say, 0 to maybe not 5 at the start, maybe from 0 to 3 in the first year, and then 4 in the second year, or whatever, that will actually give you a good reason to put more resources in overcoming that gap. Because once you, especially in case of data, the data, because it is so important for anything that you do now, when you know, and if you know that your maturity is at 0, and you know that what you can achieve by bringing it to 4, you'll be able to convince the management, or if you're already in the management level, you will be able to convince everybody in the organization that this is one of the gaps that we need to really fill, and that's why more money, more resources need to be put in this area specifically to go higher in terms of your maturity there. So it doesn't really, if you want to perform transformation, there is no reason why you should not do it, unless there is no will to do it. As long as at a leadership level, you are able to bring everybody together and ensure that they are willing to do the transformation, there is no other reason why you should not do transformation. Whether you are at 0, even if you are at 4 level, you can still go to 5 from that 4 level. If you are at 5 level, I'm sure your organization, none of the organization are at level 5 for everything, in every domain. I mean, there are other domains in which those transformation can be done. So there is you can do it at any level. It doesn't really matter what your majority level is at this moment.
Thank you, Neeraj. Guys, I know that we're kind of short of time. I'm just going to leave you with just one piece of quick information. And we've talked about digital transformation today. We spent a lot of time on it. And I think I just want to leave you with a quick overview of our course. For those of you who don't know it, I'm sure that you've seen this. But I think the reality is that right today, digital transformation is something that impacts everyone. Most importantly, it impacts the kind of work that we are going to be expected to do. And that is not about the next 2 to 3 years. It's about things that will change very, very quickly. So for those of you who are really interested in upskilling, those of you who are really interested in looking at changing the trajectory of, let's say, your career, because you recognize the fact that the domain that you are working in is either becoming completely transforming using digital tools and technologies, or you're interested in moving from an existing type of organization to a more digital forward organization. I think that's what we've designed the course for. And for those of you who are interested, please feel free. Please go to our website at www.edtp.co.in. It will give you a lot more information about the course. And then we're really happy to speak with you individually to see how either the entire course or modules of the course can help you with your career aspirations. But thank you so much, Neeraj, for your time. And thank you, everybody